To be here. Here.
All right. Sorry for the delay.
But you made our crowd bigger.
I know. Well, I don't know what it is. Why? I'm curious to see. Were you drawn from the weather, the Celtic evening prayer,
The leader.
Subject matter.
subject matter?
It was the Neo.
It was everything.
No.
Yeah. It's a good combination, but it is tricky just from a planning perspective. I want to know, not to massage my ego, but thank you. But because just for planning, it's very difficult to figure out what everyone's going to do. So when we have the nice choral even song and a dinner and a regular formation, that's one. We can expect that, but sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes it's a lot less. If we have a speaker, usually there's a few more people. Celtic evening prayer has been very popular the last couple times we've done it. So just curious if you.
Well, and the fact that it was outside, but then we all had to bundle up. No, but I also have guests from out of town. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, other people have guests from out of town.
Yeah, that's true. It could be. Yeah.
And I told a friend of mine how wonderful it was, and here she is.
Okay.
Our way to heaven.
We want to know about heaven.
Yes.
Yes, and we all like to go there eventually.
All right. Well, hopefully we can. All right. Well, this series, it started as a Sunday forum. So Sunday mornings, we've been using this book by Peter Kreeft. I have a copy here as well. And as a sort of guide, you don't have to read the book to follow along. But on Sunday mornings, we've been working through the book, and this Sunday we're going to get through the last little section. And then these Thursday night discussions, we're basically just taking what we talked about on this previous Sunday and just opening it up for conversation and discussion. So I get to talk a little bit more on Sunday, you get to talk a little bit more on Thursday. And obviously you guys are the more interesting people, so this is growing. So I thought what we do is just start with how I started the Sunday forum, which is to put up those 7 frequently asked questions on how much earth is in heaven, because this is a kind of natural question that many people have. Is it's a bit speculative, but it's how much continuity is there, how much of our current experience, how much of our current existence is going to be in the future existence. And so it has things like, will we recognize our loved ones, what kind of bodies will we have, will there be nature, will there be animals, will we eat? Will there be music? Will there be time? Things like that.
But notice the emphasis. Will there be dogs and cats in heaven? Right. Nobody asks, will there be sex in heaven?
Right. Right. The things that really
It's called heaven.
You notice it's only the men saying that?
Right.
I mean,
But the women are thinking it.
So yeah, so these are just 7 questions. On Sunday, I said I'd answer a few of them. I think I answered, not me. I read the answers that our author Peter Kreeft gave for number 1, 2, 4, and 6, I believe. But if you'd like me to read any of the other ones, I'm happy to do that. Or if you want to talk about any of what you think, or before you hear what Kreeft has to say, or any thoughts or any other questions you might have that aren't on that list.
Anybody ever read the book Heaven is for Real?
yes.
Yeah,
Out loud.
yeah, about the 4-year-old boy that died, and he describes heaven in detail.
Yeah.
And it's said, yes, we will recognize our loved ones in heaven, and they'll be young, they will not be old.
Yeah.
And goes through a lot of those, and it's really interesting.
I was interested in looking at these questions, and there's not one that says, will there be learning in heaven?
Mhm.
And I it's all about what we already know. Are we taking but the matter is, what's going to be revealed?
Mhm.
And to my interest, it's nice to know this stuff, but the stuff I don't know would be more fascinating.
Mhm. So what do you think? Will there be learning?
Well, I don't know. You're the expert.
No. This is Thursday night. This is when you talk.
We need to use the word speculative. It
Yes.
seems to be sort of the basis of all of this.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. This is especially so, because he's, you know, in a lot of the other areas, he's on, I would say, a little bit more solid ground in terms of either grounding what he's doing in scripture or in human nature or in the deepest desires that we have. But in some of the specific questions where, you know, scripture doesn't say if your dog's going to be in heaven, there's nothing about it. So you have to kind of figure out based on what, you know, you have to make an argument based on related issues.
But to Heather's point, isn't scripture speculative? Because nobody's been there and come back.
Well,
No, but he doesn't say what it.
yeah, right. So there's a shortage of what we would think of as helpful in terms of answering these kinds of questions, helpful data, right? We don't have everything we would want to know. And a good question, I think, is why? Why is there a shortage of data? Because actually, it's interesting. I forget if it's in the book or if it's in something else that I've read by Kraft, but he asks almost that precise question. He says, no one's ever been there and come back. And he said, well, actually, we do know someone.
But there have been people who have
Sure.
Near-death experiences.
Sure.
and who have said that they, you know, they wanted to go back
Right.
and,
Right.
you know.
And he scrupulously, or actually quite, it seems to be very striking that he avoids any research on near-death experiences. I suppose instead he has these graphs, his charts, his things that he's thought up.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got people that, you know, the closest we're ever going to come.
And
Yeah.
to Mike's
He doesn't
point,
even
that
use that
book about the
evidence.
4-year-old, I mean, it's moving. I mean, it's truly
Right.
Lots
a
of
wonderful story.
Yeah, it is amazing.
But you know, there've been so many books written about people who have had near-death experiences or have come back.
Right.
And what I've noticed, because you know, we're all curious, is that they're different. And what it brings to my mind is two things. There are, in my father's house, there are many rooms. And so it's quite possible that who we are here informs what magnetizes us and what we're magnetized to in the realm of the will of God. So hopefully there's peace. But you know, then, you know, Jesus, the Jews don't really believe in heaven. They believe in the sum of their deeds, especially the Orthodox.
They believe in what?
Jews. The Jews, especially the Orthodox Jews, they really don't. Heaven is, it's sort of moot for them. They believe in the sum of their deeds. And when you get with a really, really scrupulous Orthodox Jew, it's exhausting. Oh, truly, because they'll take one little thing and they analyze, you know, was it pure? And then it goes all the way down to I did it because it helps me. But, you know, so it's fascinating because I think we get glimmers. And then for me personally, it's hard to imagine a loving God that creates all of this and then removes it. Animals, you know, but you know, that's just the God I love and try to know. And
There's an interesting question, or interesting point about, and different. I think different theologians have come at this from a variety of different angles, but there's something about our individuality that is not lost in heaven, but that in some way enhances is unique to us and enhances our experience of that one reality. Book of Revelation, you see that we are all given a stone that has a name that only we know. You know, so there's a sort of uniqueness to that something, some gift, some way of looking at things, some perspective that only we can bring. It reminds me of the account of when C.S. Lewis had a close group of friends, and Charles Williams was one of them. When Charles Williams died, he said he misses not only Charles Williams, but he misses the part of J.R.R. Tolkien that only Charles Williams could draw out.
yeah.
And I think there's such insight in that. You know, that there's something about our individual, you know, the way God has made us that can uniquely bring things out in other people and also uniquely glorify God. And so how is that, how do we see things and perceive things in a way that resonates with us and, works for us, that we're drawn to, but also how is God planning to use all of those unique vantage points and gifts and abilities in a sort of comprehensive way, in a way that adds to rather than is sort of individualizing or separating.
And I think in a way, we experience God in community as well. And so somehow, the image that's coming to me is a choir where none of the notes are off, where we're, harmonizing, and we're, in Jungian terms, it would be our light side. We've integrated, the shadow side is left behind. And, it's fascinating because there's so much we take on faith, and yet we know that living good lives brings us peace. And so we have to believe that that's part of it, I would think.
Sorry, you said good lives bring us peace?
Well, I think when we're doing the right thing, it tends to bring peace. If you're lost in the other stuff, which we get lost, I do anyway, and you process through it, and you let the grace of God come in and peace is restored. So I think in some ways we have it here. We just don't turn the radio station on. We're distracted, and nothing prevents it here. Those wonderful moments when the veils are thin, and there really doesn't seem to be a separation.
Yeah, I think it's an undercurrent of Christ's book in particular, is that there are so many ways that we experience this in glimpses and little pieces, and we always want to, well, not everyone, but it's a lot of people want to increase that, want that more often, and yet we can't. To one extent, we can sort of orient ourselves towards that now, but it always seems to be just beyond reach what we're really looking for. Anything else about these, just the sort of continuity thing before I flip on to some?
Is there anything scripturally that helps guide any of these 7 questions?
Revelation.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, like, he mentions, for example, like to use the example of like how bodies, nature, and animals, for example. He's using the, nothing that directly says we will have our animals or something like that, but that God created everything. The creation is good, right? That's a fundamental tenet of Judaism and Christianity. And he says repeatedly, God doesn't scrap his ideas, basically. So that's that. Someone else says something like that.
He saw that it was good.
Right, exactly. And so it's a very different conception than that sort of Greek philosophical tradition that's matter's bad, spirit is good, and we want to escape the matter and leave our bodies behind and stuff. The promise of heaven is the promise, we say the promise of heaven, but the promise is really new creation. That's what the way that the New Testament talks about it, and the Old Testament for that matter. A new heavens and a new earth, which is a way of saying everything that God made. It's a way of saying all the totality of everything that exists. God is making new. Revelation, I make all things new. It doesn't say he's going to crumple up and start again or whatever.
It's not a resuscitation with the need of another night's sleep.
Right. Yeah, it's another way to think about it is the difference between like a resuscitating of Lazarus and a raising of Jesus, right? The will we eat, things like that. He says, well, he's going on Jesus's resurrected body. So, the different gospel accounts of those resurrection stories. Jesus can eat. He eats the fish that, that the disciples make on the shore, or that he's making on the shore.
But that's a really good model, what you just mentioned, because a lot of people are thinking, are we going to have terminal illnesses? Well, are those going to fade away? What about the things that are, really troubling us physically?
Yeah.
And if you're taking that as the example, Jesus's wounds are healed.
Yeah.
And if that's going to be the example, that's something to look forward to. You're not going to have arthritis or whatever else is troubling you.
He still saw the star.
Yeah.
Yes,
has
he did,
colors,
he had his
said.
wounds.
Healed in the sense, I think, like
Not in pain.
Not in pain or
Yeah.
not, so, yeah, right, but
That's what I meant.
yeah, exactly.
And the other thing I found hard to come to terms with is when Mary sees Jesus, you know, after he's resurrected, she didn't know who he was. Well, she spent a lot of time with him.
Right.
So, you know, you have to feel that, and the wounds are there. They're all part of what formed divinity made man incarnated. And yet God amplifies it. There's something about the human experience that we get to graduate from, for lack of a better word, you know, and I think like you, learning is, to me, is curiosity and learning are just so important. And I think if we believe in intercessory prayer, we believe that our gifts move on, they leave, they stay with all those we loved and gave our gifts to here, and yet you have to, you know, believe that it's made somehow whole, you know.
Al has
Yeah,
something.
I just have a totally different viewpoint in terms of mystery of faith. And so nothing concrete really bothers me.
yeah,
Because I just look at it as a mysterious thing
something
that is
new
beyond
adventure
my
that you'll
knowing.
discover, yeah.
And so I'm not saying I'm right or I'm not, maybe I'm the weirdo,
No,
but
no,
I just take that approach, like it's gonna be mysterious, and so.
Right.
Can't figure it out.
right.
That's why it's
And you know,
mysterious.
I mean, any of these kinds of questions that have a speculative element to them, some people, it really bothers them. They want to know, and I think, and other people, not at all. Like several people in the first session were like, I really don't care.
Right.
I know it's gonna be good. God's gonna take care of it, right? I trust God. So if that's that kind of straightforward acceptance is wonderful. If that's where you are, you know, there's no need to feel like you have to change. But I think we all have issues, whether it's this or something else, where for one reason or another, it is something that we think about a lot. And the relationship between science and religion, or you know, it could be any number of different things. Some people are like, I don't care, you know, and other people that they need to figure that
I
out.
didn't mean I was right, it's just for
Yeah.
me.
So
I know I've said this before, but I don't think about it a lot.
Mhm.
You know, to me, it's, why is it an issue?
Mhm.
You know,
It is, but it is.
if you have faith, it will happen. So you go about your life doing the best that you can.
Well, you could end up in hell.
Beg your pardon?
We could all end up in hell.
Well, that's an expert.
yeah.
That will be less attended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the guy that wrote Seinfeld, he said that if we say till death do us part, does that mean you get to pick someone new and help?
Have something to say about that. One of the interesting things, and that's a great sort of illustration of this, taking what we can know and saying confidently what we can know, but then at some point saying, but this is beyond what we can know. We're speculating now, and making sure that line is pretty clear, because you know, the Sadducees come up to Jesus and they think they have a knockdown argument, right? They're like, there's no resurrection, there couldn't be. There's 7 brothers, right? One of them marries, he doesn't have a kid, the other one marries, doesn't have a kid, whatever, levirate marriage. And they all die, no kids. And then in the resurrection, whose wife is she? Because they all were married to her. So this is a knockdown argument, right? And he says, well, the reason you're wrong is because you know neither the scriptures nor the power of God. In the resurrection, there is no marriage or giving in marriage. So that's unless he had said that, we wouldn't have known that, right? So that's a good example of something where, you know, something that's specifically mentioned, you can go on, but other things you have to be very careful, because something that might seem very logical might not be.
Right.
Yeah, great illustration.
Nicholas,
Yes.
can I just say one
Sure.
thing? I was present, I was the only one in the room when my grandmother died.
Mhm.
And it was the first person that I saw who had died.
Yeah.
And the room was so electric
Mhm.
when it happened.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't not even know if I knew that she had died by the time I was being affected
Right.
by what was happening in that room.
How old were you?
I was old enough to, I was probably 35.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't a kid.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is there was something supernatural going on there.
Yeah.
That just, I was just like, what's happening here?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and actually, sorry, but I had the same experience with my mother. I was the only person in the room, and I noticed her breathing would change, and I went over and I said the Lord's Prayer. And when I finished, this bubble came out of her mouth, and it was just, that was it.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
it was the hair on my neck.
I know.
It was so Shep. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It was an amazing experience.
It's all affirming and it's
Yeah.
all true.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that's unique about those, that's unfortunate about the way that so many people die now is that it's not typically in a context like that where people can actually experience, if it's over medicalized or, in a room where people aren't family can bear.
The only medical she had was a sherry with the vicar the night before.
Right. So, but there's a whole tradition, the Ars Moriendi, the, art of dying, where, you knew that you were probably going to die in your home, surrounded by the people who loved you. And so you thought about your death, and you not in a, morbid kind of way, but how do I envision it happening? Let me sort of walk through it a couple times so that I can practice, like you do a practice for a wedding rehearsal, you do a practice for same kind of thing. And what do I want to impart to those who are there, And what often happens is not that actually happens the way people anticipate, but it allows them to, come to terms with things. And what often happens is something, like you said, Shep, that's just supernatural in that moment. And they really can convey things, not even the things that they planned to convey, but it's really a remarkable moment when people, and you probably, even in situations where it is a more medicalized and more sort of in hospital settings, where they're, all of a sudden they're more alert, or someone comes in the room and there's a big reaction, there's this big reaction. So, unfortunately, it's becoming less, those kinds of experiences are becoming less and less common for people who don't have that, who don't have that kind of experience. But one of the first things that when someone comes for a funeral here is the first thing we ask is the family, anyone who was there, would you mind describing what, how she died or how he died? And I would say eight times out of 10, there's a story like what you said, where something in the room, or if the people happen to be there, it's quite remarkable. And it's just a sort of being attentive to what's going on in those moments.
I find the most remarkable thing, which I wrote you, we don't share these things.
Yeah.
We don't share them. We don't
Right.
talk about them. I had no idea
Yeah.
that happens that much.
Yeah. And the men's study, this is I think right when I first got here, we were reading a book. We were reading a book by Dallas Willard, I think.
Yes.
Is that you right? Okay, so and he talks about experiences like this, and he mentions in the book how people are very reticent to share them, because he says, hypothetically, he's sort of speculating, but he says, you don't want to be the crazy guy who believes in something, who are the people, you don't know how they're going to react to what you think and all that kind of stuff. So people are generally reticent until someone shares. And as soon as one person says it, then it's like, oh, I had a similar experience. Oh, that happened to me too. And so that should be an encouragement for us to, we don't have anything to be nervous about, right? So share those experiences. And I would say in the vast majority of situations, you might get a couple of funny looks, people might be like, well, okay, I didn't think you were that crazy. But I'm obviously used to that based on my outfit. But the worst they're gonna do is just be like, that's strange, I don't understand that. And more often than not, I think people are gonna say, oh, I've had a similar experience, or I remember my wife had an experience like that. So,
Well,
and it's
even,
affirming, it's reaffirming, yeah.
even a little bit beyond that.
Mm.
It happened to me when after my mom died, I was with her when she died. After Pat died, I was with him.
Mhm.
And several other people, I was the only one in the room.
Mm.
And they were all magical.
Mhm.
But then hours later,
Mhm.
when the family was all together, I remember after my mom died, we were in the kitchen and it was like she was there,
Mhm.
like over the refrigerator.
Mhm.
I mean, it was,
Right.
her spirit was there.
Mhm.
I swear it was.
Sure.
And it was very comforting,
Right.
but that happened more
Right.
than once to me.
Yeah.
So it was like they're making,
Right.
I felt like she was making sure we were all okay.
Right.
And then they go. It's strange because they're there with you. And then maybe it's a month or 2 months and you feel that they have moved on
Moved
or
Mhm.
that presence isn't as strong. I mean, they're still with you, but it's almost palpable,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, right after.
So we're talking about heaven, but it probably would be something to think about to have another whole endeavor where we talk about the process of dying,
Mm.
because there are a lot of aspects to that in our culture.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to get back to the questions, and well, we've moved on now, I guess, but since I'm a musician.
Yeah.
I think that in music, we're all open to experiencing music in a very deep way, and we can talk about the mysteries, and we can talk about our own personal view of what we think we believe is
Mhm.
going to happen when we actually die.
Mhm.
But I think that music, in our own experience as humans, gives us an entry into a realm that is extraordinary.
Mhm.
And so I think that when we experience music, that we can be thinking, and feeling that that's really otherworldly, and that is touching God in some ways, and sex also to some degree. I mean, it's to my mind, it's similar,
Mhm.
a kind of experience, but I think definitely for everybody in music, you can listen to music, and even if you're all alone, you can listen to music, and you can really open up and allow yourself to be in the presence of sound, so that you're not really thinking. But it could be, you could imagine that's like heaven. And so I think it's a way for us to be reassured that since we have that experience, with music, that it could be like that for us with heaven.
Pat, thinking about Advent when you played your violin. I mean, you were like an agent or an angel, and in fact I said that to you.
Here, yes.
I mean, you transported the room and through your
It
music.
wasn't me, it was the music.
You're playing the music. Thank you.
It comes through.
It was wonderful.
But I think it can be reassuring, because we're all trying to grapple with, rationally speaking or putting words to it, but music doesn't have any words. Well, I mean, unless you're singing, but even if you're singing, your singing is beyond the words.
Yeah.
So I think we can all feel that can be a reassuring thing for us.
I totally agree with that. To hear someone who's got the gift that Pavarotti had, and every time I heard him sing, he made me joyful,
Right.
and at the same time, made me cry,
Mhm.
because his gift was so incredible.
To me, Barb, it's like the prophets. What the prophets had came through them, and I performed with Pavarotti a number of times. Like, the sound just came through him.
Right.
Yes,
And it was like around him.
yes.
It was like, it was the most amazing thing. It wasn't coming from his voice. It was like around
His
him.
being.
And you see that with great musicians.
Yeah.
It's not them. It's like,
An energy.
it's coming out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a thin place, but I studied comparative religions, and other religions have very similar descriptions of what everybody's describing in here as well.
Yeah.
It's not just Christianity.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I like about this and Kreft's analysis is that he's describing things that we can experience because of our human nature, right? And even though he's obviously he's describing it from a Christian perspective, right? He's describing things, experiences that we can all have with music and beauty and nature and, all sorts of different things that have that experience or that resonate with us in that sense of that, that painful longing that we experience with aesthetic beauty, among other things. Precisely because that it's hitting us at the deepest level of our being, which we all share in common, with the deepest level of being, the different deepest level of reality. So it's a distinctly Christian way of understanding what we can all as humans experience. Yeah, that's good.
Would you be willing to present C.S. Lewis's argument about answered needs? Because this is so much apropos at this moment. All of us thinking about the music or any kind of ecstatic experience, if only that could last, and it's a very good argument.
Just if we were made for if we have this desire, yeah. So he famously said, and he goes into some detail, but he famously said that he was trying to figure out, he wanted to analyze that experience of joy that he was searching for, that he kept on finding in little glimpses here and there. And he basically came to the conclusion every time he tried to introspect, it would immediately go away. And so he had to sort of get lost in the experience. He had to not try to self-reflect, not try to think about what was going on, but just, be in that experience. And it would always have this quality that Kreft talks about, where it's both painful in the sense that it's not satisfying the deepest longing, but it's also, he knows it is the thing to satisfy it. It's the thing that he's been desiring from, whenever he is going after aesthetic pleasure, or whenever he sees all whenever romantic love or whatever it is. And he says, because there's nothing in the natural world, nothing in the world around us that can actually satisfy that longing, but that longing in us is a natural, it's not something that we create, it's a natural desire that we have. He said, if I find in myself a desire which nothing in this world can satisfy, the most natural explanation is that I was made for another world.
It's beautiful.
And is that where you were getting at?
That's
Right.
the idea that he was saying that there are no other desires that don't have answers.
Right.
And therefore, why should we think that this is the exception?
The only one that doesn't, right.
And we have to make time for it, to honor it. And I think that, when I was 25, my roommate was killed by a drunk driver. And it was, I was young, and the phone rang in the middle of the night, and it plunged me into a lot of places. But one of the things that happened is she didn't leave. She was there. And I was, I guess I was a lot of things, but someone told me about an Episcopal priest in Georgetown who felt that I would like to talk to this man. So I went into his office. He had a Star of David, and he had a Buddha, and he had a cross, and he explained to me, he said, when someone dies of violent sudden death, he said, what you're experiencing, it's real, believe it. She isn't, gone yet. And then, but the strangest thing about that whole time frame is that there was no time. I began to exist out of time. And when I went back to that church in Georgetown, there was no church. Isn't that weird? There was no church. And I kept saying, but and then I realized that there is so much that here for us, that when we need it, it comes, but we should need it all the time. We should make time for it. And I think the thing that's so different now is we have so many distractions. In other periods of time, it was more survival, just eking out a survival. And so I do think that the more we make time for these things, the more that we have what we've always needed, and different cultures. Like my roommates were freaked out. We lived in this house, and a sorority house, and they said, "You have a death shelf. This is so weird. What is wrong with you?"
What?
A death shelf. People
A death shelf?
Death. All these books about death.
Shelf.
And I had one about it was a big thing about reincarnation. It was set in India. It had all these supposedly true stories about children who died, and then they would take their families back to the family where they were just from. And I got so deep into it that I thought I'm never going to graduate from college. Graduate school. I better just, give these books away. But it's amazing how some of the things that are so important, the mysteries of life, they don't get discussed. They just kind of get thrown at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how actually Kreft starts the book. And with the first session, I was like, he has had all these arguments for why we get, how easily distracted we are and how we don't think about these things. And he tries to convince you the importance of it. And everyone was like, yeah, we know that. But his audience was a little different. He was talking, mainly to college students. That was his, he's a college professor. And you do really need to spend a lot of time with college students, getting them to stop being distracted and focus. But to a larger extent, that's true of all of us for sure. It's easy to fill our time with entertainment and distractions and things rather than just stopping and thinking about these big questions. Kind of short on time, but maybe I'll find one last quote if you want to do. Let's see. I don't want to do that one. What about this one?
Okay.
It says J.R.R. Tolkien. He's describing the eucatastrophe tale. The eucatastrophe tale is the true form of fairy tale and its highest function, giving a fleeting glimpse of joy beyond the walls of the world, poignant as grief, a catch of the breath, a beat and lifting of the heart, near to or indeed accompanied by tears. When the sudden turn comes, we get a piercing glimpse of joy and heart's desire. For that for a moment passes outside the frame, rends indeed the very web of the story, and lets a gleam come through. What? So he's a writer, obviously he's describing that the end of a story that ties everything up really nicely, which should be a completely happy experience, right? Happily ever after, everything works out, no loose ends. And yet he says there's a painfulness in that kind of happy ending. It's that's why he says eucatastrophe. It's like sort of we don't, there's something about it that and I wonder why do you think that is? There's something about it that is both deeply satisfying and also painful or
Frustrating.
Frustrating in a sense, yeah. So think about those works, yeah.
So I think like when you finish a great novel that you just really enjoyed reading and you read it very slowly at the end because you didn't want it to end.
Right.
So then you're thinking, yes, like I knew it was going to turn out that way.
Right.
And then you think, but it's gone.
Right.
Like
What am I
I'm
gonna
no
do
longer
now?
part
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that every time I wanted to pick up the book, I
Right.
had it.
Yeah.
It's almost like
It's just then have a sense of loss.
yeah, it's almost like the world, that whole world that you've been inhabiting is coming to an end or something like that. The
Mm.
characters are you're no longer in relationship with those characters, you know, that kind of
But
thing.
so that's a little bit like you're living with someone
Yes,
and then they're gone.
right,
Mm.
Their life stopped in this world.
right,
And now, like all that time, you were really enjoying your life with them.
right,
And that life stopped.
right.
It's a good way to put it.
Yes.
But it doesn't really stop
Right. But that's the
because
experience.
you still have
That's one aspect. of
memories
literature,
and,
I think. That's one of the reasons.
feelings and
Yeah.
One thing, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Tolkien and Lewis and their other friends had all been through World War One, which was such a horrible experience, and they were, you know, seeing so much death
Mhm.
that somehow they brought joy
Yeah.
from it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge influence on their lives. It was, but this, he in his book, he wrote a book, C.S. Lewis wrote a book, Surprised by Joy, where he just talks about his, it's basically his spiritual autobiography. And this, what he's talking about, this longing, this for joy, both predates that and continues in it and after the
Okay.
war. So it's something that he was chasing his whole life. It wasn't just a reaction, but yeah, but it didn't make it go away. And like that was not that was something that the kids do or something. No, it was still there, and it wasn't just a reaction to, you know, all the death and gloom of World War One.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me close with a word of prayer, and then we're going to do one more session on this Sunday, and then next week we won't be talking about heaven. We're going to be, well, we might be. The guy who's coming to talk for our speaker series, Gerald Boersma, he's going to talk about, he's an Augustinian scholar, so he's going to talk about Augustine, he's going to talk about happiness, he's going to talk about our desires, and that really all ends in heaven. So maybe he will talk about heaven, who knows. But that'll be 6:30 next Thursday after choral evensong and dinner. And then the Thursday after that, we'll finish up our series.
Do you have those quotes that you could send to us? Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, if anyone would like them, just
They're
maybe send me an
beautiful.
email.
Yeah.
Okay, let us pray. Gracious Father, we give you thanks for this gathering. We thank you for this time to think about those things which matter most, by which we mean thinking more about you and about our relationship with you, and those moments in our lives which give us glimpses of that relationship, which is our destiny. And we pray that you would fan to flame that desire in our hearts until it is consummated in heaven. These things we ask in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
yeah.
I figures, you know, going back to that, you know, just like, hey,
Yes.